all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts. Hello. In this video, we're going to talk about William Shakespeare's play, As You Like It. Those lines are probably from the most famous speech in As You Like It, given by the melancholy Jakes. It is a speech about the nature of change throughout human life. He talks about the life cycle of a man, going from infancy through boyhood, through sort of adolescence and young adulthood, to maturity, to decline, and eventually to death. And change is a central theme in As You Like It. The play is really, really interested in the nature of change, and changes are constant in this play. The play tells the story primarily of the romantic pursuit of Rosalind by Orlando. Rosalind is the daughter of the exiled Duke and cousin of the current Duke's daughter. They are the best of friends. Orlando is the youngest son of a now deceased knight. That knight was a favorite of the old Duke, who has been deposed and exiled to the Forest of Arden. The new Duke is not as big a fan of this family, and Orlando takes after his father, whereas Orlando's older brother Oliver takes after the current Duke. So Duke Ferdinand is the current Duke. Duke Senior is the exiled Duke in Arden. Duke Ferdinand behaves very arbitrarily throughout the first... So Oliver schemes to have his younger brother killed, basically to deny him the inheritance that their father had willed to Orlando. Duke Ferdinand is centrally concerned with maintaining his power and his control, and he does so in very authoritarian and arbitrary ways. Orlando, feeling that he has basically nothing to lose, goes to the court to wrestle Charles, who is the Duke's wrestler, the world heavyweight champion, basically, of this dukedom. And Orlando is basically like, if I lose and I die in this wrestling match, who cares? I got nothing to lose, nothing going for me, whatever. If I win, great, cool. That somewhat changes when he meets Rosalind. He meets the two girls, Rosalind and... why can't I think of her name? The cousin. Celia. Sorry. So he meets Rosalind and Celia. Orlando and Rosalind fall instantly in love with one another. Orlando fights Charles and wins. He defeats Charles. It's this sort of epic victory. At which point Duke Ferdinand is basically like, yeah, this guy's got to go. So Duke Ferdinand schemes with Oliver to have Orlando killed, but Orlando is given word of this by his faithful aged servant Adam, and they flee to the forest to join Duke Senior and his merry men, basically. For no apparent reason, Duke Ferdinand then decides that he's going to exile Rosalind. He gives no compelling reason why he should do this, even though both Rosalind and Celia challenge him on it, and Celia begs that her best friend, her cousin, this person that she has literally been growing up with, not be exiled for no reason. When Duke Ferdinand refuses, Rosalind and Celia decide that they are going to go to the forest together to ensure their safety. Celia is going to travel under a different name and sort of dress herself up like a shepherdess, and Rosalind is going to dress in men's clothing and call herself Ganymede. We have change going on, right? So we've got a number of changes already. This is the first act, right? We haven't even made it to Act 2 yet. We got the changing of Duke Ferdinand's mind about Rosalind being allowed to stay at court for no clear reason. He just does it because he's an evil dick. We've got Rosalind's decision to change from Rosalind to Ganymede. Celia's decision to change from a princess to a shepherdess, etc., etc. Oliver changes from feeling that he has nothing to lose to wanting desperately to pursue Rosalind. So we've got all of these changes. They go to the forest. Stuff is going along. A lot of different people are pursuing a lot of different romances, and Jakes is out there being melancholic. The Duke Senior and his merry men are out there just being like, hey, we don't necessarily want to be in the forest, but it's pretty baller that we are. I'm going to talk more about that because there's a high degree of pastoralism in this play as well. And so a lot of stuff happens in the middle of the play, the most consequential of which for the overarching storyline is that Orlando meets up with Ganymede, i.e. Rosalind in disguise, and Rosalind decides to do this thing. It's not entirely clear what her purpose is, and it may be a combination of things. One reason is she wants to test Orlando's devotion to Rosalind. Another is that she wants to protect her own and Celia's cover in this forest by not giving away their identities. Another is that she wants to spend time with Orlando because she's as in love with him as he is with her. But probably the big one is to test Orlando's devotion to Rosalind. And so, as Ganymede, she proposes this thing where she said I'm going to keep calling her she because Rosalind is a she, but Ganymede would be a he. And of course, the actor playing Rosalind in Elizabethan England, in early modern England, or Jacobean England, whenever this play would have been, in any iteration of it within Shakespeare's lifetime, the actor would have been played by a boy. So this is another one of those great cross-dressing plays like Twelfth Night, for instance, where you have a male actor playing a female character playing a young man. And so you've got this sort of looping backwards of things. But as Ganymede, Rosalind proposes that Orlando woo her, pretending that she is Rosalind, and she will play Rosalind. And the way that she will play Rosalind is in this very sort of capricious, transitory and mercurial way. And it's a weird storyline because we have this character that we, the audience, know is female. And into her mouth, Shakespeare puts a lot of very misogynist language. So there's this one shepherdess who refuses to be courted by this shepherd who is deeply in love with her, and Rosalind, as Ganymede, is basically like, hey, stop being a bitch. Just fucking accept that this guy loves you. He's pretty cool. Doesn't really matter if you love him or not. You should just accept that and be with him. Because women like you kind of suck. And yeah, in talking to Orlando and trying to dissuade him from loving Rosalind, she's consistently like, yeah, if I were Rosalind, I'd be like changing my opinion 20 times a day and demanding that you just accept it continually, and I'd be getting angry about nothing all the time, and I'd be like every 10 seconds I'd be changing my mind, changing my mood and everything, and you'd just have to go along with it if you really loved me. And it is this very like anti-feminist conception of women as manipulative and inconstant and things like this. And there is very much a sort of like, because Rosalind is supposed to be this admirable character, right? In some ways, she is sort of the ideal woman. And it is ironic, of course, that in order to express the ideal woman necessarily needs to be a boy. It's sort of this weird paradox, right? But that's also kind of bizarrely true throughout much of Western culture, right? Like the most this has been observed before, but traditionally the men who are regarded as most attractive often have very feminine qualities to them. And so there is something very like culturally constructed, right? Where there is something very attractive about androgyny. And so this play is very interested in that. But it is striking that as a man, Rosalind says incredibly problematic things. And at one point, Olivia even calls her out on this and is basically like, you have said some horrific shit about women. I kind of want to like pull the doublet and hose off of you and expose you for being an enemy of your own sex. So first off, medal for Olivia for that. But it is this sort of weird thing, right? Where the ideal woman in Shakespearean plays very frequently, especially in the comedies, very frequently will end up espousing virulently anti-feminist rhetoric. Catherine at the end of The Taming of the Shrew is another great example of this. But Orlando woos Ganymede, pretending that it's Rosalind, which of course it is actually Rosalind, which we know and Orlando doesn't, etc., etc. And then at the end, you have these two, I think, really problematic elements. It's a play fascinated by change, as I've said, but Oliver and Duke Ferdinand are back in the city. They're scheming. Schemy motherfuckers is what they are. And basically, Duke Ferdinand is like, all right, listen, Oliver, if you don't go find and bring me your brother, alive or dead, I don't care. I'm going to take all your stuff. I'm going to strip you of your title. I'm going to exile you. So find me your brother. Orlando agrees to do this, both because he wants to keep his stuff and because he doesn't like his brother. He wants his brother dead. So it's a win-win for him. So he goes out into the forest, and apparently in this scene that doesn't really make that much sense, but he narrates this to Rosalind, still dressed as Ganymede. Basically, he's like, I was sleeping in the forest, and this snake like wrapped itself around my neck and was going to kill me. And also there was a lion hanging out in the underbrush, even though I think the forest of Arden, I want to say Arden is in France? It's either in France or in England, I think, which is not the natural territory where lions tend to roam. But Oliver's story is that he was just lying there, ready to be killed by this snake and or lion, when Orlando showed up, drove off the snake, and then the lion came out, and Orlando fought this lion to protect Oliver. Orlando was wounded in the arm, but Oliver has this sort of road to Damascus revelation where he's like, oh, actually, my brother's a pretty cool dude. The fact that I've been a total dick to him for no reason, I now feel bad about that. I repent my actions. I'm going to give up my title, my lands, all my possessions. I'm going to turn them over to Orlando, and I'm going to live in the forest here with Olivia, because I have fallen in love with her, and she has fallen in love with me. Great. We go on a little bit. People are about to get married when we get word that from Orlando and Oliver's third brother, who we're hearing about for the first time at the end of Act 5, who shows up, and he's like, so Duke Ferdinand was going to lead a whole bunch of knights into the forest because he's heard that it's pretty fucking awesome out here and you guys are having a great time. So he was going to lead out a whole bunch of knights and just kill you all. But he got to the edge of the forest, and again, we have this road to Damascus moment where he meets this old religious hermit just chilling in the forest, and the guy's like, you know, Jesus probably wouldn't murder a whole bunch of people just for living in the forest after you literally exile them to the forest. And Ferdinand is like, that makes so much sense. I'm going to give up being the Duke, I'm going to give the dukedom back to Duke Signor, and I'm going to just stay here and be a religious hermit in the woods. That's not one, that's two. Deus Ex Machina. Right? Deus Ex Machina, this is a term that means God from the machine. It is a term for when there is no natural resolution to a conflict possible, and so something completely unjustified by the plot happens. In ancient Greek drama, this would be a god showing up at the end and being like, listen, here's how everything is going to get worked out. Here we have these two characters who are villains throughout the whole play, who show up at the forest and are basically just like, oh, I'm fucking changed. I'm a good guy. I no longer want to kill my family members. So that's a big problem as far as plot goes. It is an incredibly weak technique. Deus Ex Machina is usually regarded as a narrative failure. But that means that everybody can get married. Everybody who wants to get married gets married. Duke Signor and his entire court get to go back and take command of the court itself. Orlando gets to be a knight or whatever. He gets to take over his father's possessions and gets all of the stuff, etc., etc. So, there you go. So the last thing I do want to talk about very quickly, because this video is going a bit longer than I intended, is the pastoralism of the play, because this is the other thing that's sort of weirdly contradictory about it. This is a play that is deeply pastoral, that is, it invests in a logic, as do many of Shakespeare's comedies. Things like A Midsummer Night's Dream, for instance, is a great example of this, that the court or the city is a space of corruption and danger, whereas the forest, the natural world, is a space of healthy good fellowship and magical happiness where you find love, etc., etc. We get this idea introduced from Act 1, Scene 1, where Charles, the king's wrestler, says, "They say he is already in the forest of Arden," that's Duke Senior, "and a many merry men with him, and there they live like the old Robin Hood of England. They say many young gentlemen flock to him every day and fleet the time carelessly, as they did in the golden world." So there is this sort of paradisical quality to it, this quality of paradise to the forest of Arden, which, cool, on one level. I mean, pastoralism has a long heritage. It's a very, very common aesthetic. The thing that is somewhat strange about it in this play, and in a play like Midsummer Night's Dream as well, is that while the forest is this space of magic and finding love and hearty good fellowship, ultimately the happy ending is the return to the court. Right? So Duke Senior gets to go back to being Duke. He gets to return to the space that the play figures as the space of corruption and capriciousness, lack of fellowship, etc., etc. That somehow is the happy ending. And that doesn't appear to be a contradiction in Shakespeare's view of things, or at least within the structure of this play and a play like A Midsummer Night's Dream.